Our focus on this lecture is going to be just looking at predefined methods. Let's take a look at an algebraic function just to start things off. Let's say we have f of x equals 2x plus 5. So hopefully you remember your algebra. If not, you might want to brush up on that. So if we have some input x, we're going to get an output for f of x. So just to give a couple of examples, f of 1 is going to be 7 because 2 times 1 is 2 plus 5 is going to be 7. F of 2 is going to be 9 and f of 3 is going to be 11. Well, methods are very similar to algebraic functions. So each method is going to have some name, it's going to have a pair of parentheses, and it's going to have 0 or more parameters, and we mean what we put in the parentheses themselves. So here are a couple of examples of methods, and we've already talked about a couple of these already. So we have the POW method, where x and y are going to be parameters, and this computes x to the y power. There's the square root method, which is SQRT. This has a single parameter, and this computes the square root of x. So these predefined methods are organized as a collection or group of classes, and we call this the class libraries. Let's take a look at the math class in more detail, because the math class contains several methods and constants that we're going to be using in a lot of programs. First, we have the constant e, which is a double, and it's set to 2.71, and I'm not going to say all the digits, but you can see that it's pretty useful to have this. So instead of having to type out this number every single time we want to use e, we can just simply use the e constant given in the math class. Similarly, we have a constant for pi. So if you ever want to know how many the digits of pi to however many digits this is, well, here you go. I mean, most people know it's 3.14, but we can use pi or pi for our constant instead of having to write this number all the time. And we have several different methods as well. We have the ABS method, which returns the absolute value of x. So for example, the absolute value of negative 75.3 is going to return 75.3. Now I will mention, I'll probably reiterate this later on, the absolute value method is one of those that has several different types associated with it. So if I input a double, my result is going to be a double. If I put in an integer, I'm going to get an integer. So this is a method where it doesn't return a specific variable type. It just depends what our input is. Another method we have is the ceiling method, or CEIL. And this returns the smallest integer that is greater than or equal to x. So let me give you an example. So let's say we want to get the ceiling of 56.34. We want to get the smallest integer that is greater than or equal to x. So we're pretty much rounding up to the nearest integer. So in this case, it's going to return 57. The next method we have is the EXP method. So this returns a double, but it returns specifically e to the power x. So this is used in calculus and algebra-based type formulas, so you might find this beneficial at some point. We also have the floor method, which returns the largest integer that is less than or equal to x. So it's kind of the opposite of our ceiling method. This just returns, or I should say, it just takes our input and rounds it down to the nearest integer. So for example, if we do the floor of 65.78, it's going to return 65.0 because that is the largest integer that is less than or equal to x. We have the log method, which is just log. It returns the natural logarithm of x. We also have log 10 as a method, and this returns log base 10 of x. The max method returns the larger value of either x or y. This is another one of those cases where there isn't a specific type it returns. It just depends what our input types are. So here, as an example, if I compute the max of 15 and 25, it's going to return 25. If they're integers, they're going to return an integer. If I put in doubles, it's going to return a double. The min method will return the smaller of x or y. And this is another one of those methods where the return type is based on whatever our input types are. So if we input an integer, we get an integer. So to give you an example, if we get the minimum of 15 and 25, This is going to return 15 since it's the smaller of the two. The round method will take x and round it to the nearest integer. So just to give an example of that, if we take 24.56 and round it, it's going to give us 25. If we had 24.32, it would return a 24. And then we have a couple of trig methods. So the cosine of x will return simply the cosine of x in radians. Our sine method will return the sine of x in radians. And tangent, or tan, in this case, will return the tangent of x in radians. Java also has methods from the character class, so we can do different operations on characters. Now, this class comes from the java.lang package, just like the math class. And it does, as I said, lets us manipulate individual characters. So the first method we'll take a look at is the isDigit method. This is a Boolean method that returns true if the character ch is a digit. And if it's not a digit, then it's going to return false. So for example, if I do isDigit and try to pass 8 as a character, it's going to return true because it'll recognize that 8 is in fact a digit. The isLetter method is going to return true if our character is a letter of the alphabet, and it's going to return false otherwise. So here's an example where if we try to pass the asterisk symbol or star, well, it's not a letter, so it's going to return false. The isLowercase method is going to check to see if our character is a lowercase letter. So it'll return true if it is a lowercase letter and return false otherwise. So here's an example where we pass the lowercase a. Since it is a lowercase letter, it's going to return true. The isUppercase method is going to do something similar to the isLowercase. It's going to check to see if we have an uppercase letter. So if it is an uppercase letter, it's going to return true. And if it's not an uppercase letter, it's going to return false. So to give an example, isUppercase and capital B, that's going to return true because capital B is an uppercase letter. The toLowercase method returns a character. It takes the character that's stored in ch and returns the lowercase equivalent of it. So for example, if we pass the capital D, it's going to return a lowercase d. Now, what about non-alphabetic characters like the asterisk? It's just going to return the asterisk. It's just going to return whatever symbol we pass. So if it's not a letter, it's just going to return whatever it is that we sent. And then the toUppercase method, well, it does the opposite of a toLowercase. It's going to take our character and return the uppercase equivalent of it. So for example, if we call toUppercase and pass a lowercase j, it's going to return a capital J.